Americans spend billions of dollars on coffee every year, without giving much thought to what is actually inside the cup. For many older adults, coffee is not just a morning habit. It is comfort. It is routine. It is the one part of the day that feels familiar no matter what else is going on. But what if the coffee you have trusted for years is not as clean as you believe? What if some of the biggest names sitting on grocery store shelves are hiding something that most consumers never think to question? Recent investigations have raised serious concerns about certain instant coffees and decaffeinated coffees. Those investigations uncovered reports involving industrial solvents, heavy metals, and manufacturing practices that have left many longtime coffee drinkers asking the same question. Am I really drinking something that is good for me? Today we are taking a close look at 15 coffee brands that have come under intense scrutiny. Later in this video, I will also share 5 brands that stand out for doing things very differently. So before you make your next cup of coffee, stay with me until the end, because the final part of this countdown could completely change the way you shop for coffee in the future. Let us begin with the first brand. Honestly, this one surprised me more than any other brand on the list. You might expect the number one spot to belong to an inexpensive supermarket coffee. It does not. Instead, the number one spot belongs to a premium brand that markets itself directly to people who are trying to live healthier lives. That is exactly what makes this story so unsettling. The first brand is Danger Coffee. With a name like that, you would probably assume the company is simply using clever marketing. But according to independent testing funded by the Lead Safe Mama project, the results painted a very different picture from what many customers expected. The instant coffee produced by Danger Coffee is promoted with health-focused phrases such as mold-free and remineralized. Those claims encourage consumers to believe they are paying more for a cleaner and healthier product. However, laboratory testing reportedly found some of the highest heavy metal levels measured during the instant coffee analysis performed for the project. The reported results included approximately 36.2 parts per billion of lead, 32.9 parts per billion of arsenic, and 9.84 parts per billion of cadmium. That is where the real concern begins. According to the investigation, these metals may not simply be the result of naturally occurring environmental contamination. The report suggests that the remineralization process itself may have introduced additional heavy metals into the finished product through inexpensive mineral sources. In other words, many people believe they were paying a premium price for added health benefits, while independent testing raised questions about whether that very process may have contributed to the contamination that was measured. Heavy metals, such as lead, arsenic, and cadmium, have been studied for decades because repeated exposure over long periods has been linked to concerns involving the brain, the kidneys, the bones, and the nervous system. That information is especially important for older adults because the body often becomes more sensitive to long-term environmental exposure with age. One of the most disappointing parts of this story is that many customers purchased Danger Coffee specifically because they wanted a healthier alternative. Instead of simply trusting advertising claims, more consumers are now looking for companies that openly publish independent laboratory testing and clearly explain how their products are manufactured. That level of transparency is becoming increasingly important as more people realize that premium packaging and wellness marketing do not always tell the complete story. Marketed as a healthier choice can generate this much controversy. It naturally raises another question. What happens when you move to one of the biggest budget brands sold through the largest online retailer in the United States? Unfortunately, that is exactly where the next part of this countdown takes us. The second brand is Amazon Fresh Decaf. Millions of households rely on Amazon Fresh because the products are convenient, affordable, and delivered directly to the front door. According to independent laboratory testing referenced in the original investigation, some decaffeinated coffee products sold under the Amazon Fresh brand reportedly contained methylene chloride residues measuring above 90 parts per billion. Methylene chloride is a chemical solvent that has been used for many years during certain decaffeination processes. Although the use of this solvent is regulated, many consumers now specifically look for coffee brands that avoid chemical solvents altogether by using alternatives, such as the Swiss water process, or naturally derived sugarcane ethyl acetate. Many people who choose decaffeinated coffee are already trying to make healthier decisions. Older adults, people living with heart conditions, people who are sensitive to caffeine, and many others often choose decaffeinated coffee because they believe it is the safer option. Learning that some products may still involve chemical solvent processing has caused many shoppers to rethink what the word decaffeinated actually means. Removing caffeine is no longer the only question. Understanding exactly how the caffeine was removed has become just as important. That is a question more consumers are asking today than ever before. As you continue watching this countdown, you will discover that Amazon Fresh is far from the only brand facing these concerns. The next name on this list has been sitting in family kitchens for generations, making the next story even more surprising. The third brand is Café Bustelo Decaf. This is where the countdown becomes much more personal for many families. Café Bustelo is more than just another coffee brand. For generations, it has been part of family breakfasts, weekend gatherings, and conversations around the kitchen table. In countless Latino households, that familiar yellow can represents tradition, comfort, and memories passed from one generation to the next. That is exactly why the findings connected to this brand caught so many people by surprise. According to the original investigation, the J.M. Smucker Company, the corporation behind Café Bustelo, became the focus of legal action involving the use of methylene chloride during the decaffeination process. Laboratory results referenced in the investigation reported methylene chloride levels exceeding 90 parts per billion in the decaffeinated coffee sold under the Café Bustelo brand. For many consumers, the biggest disappointment was not simply the chemical itself. The real disappointment came from realizing that a coffee trusted for decades could still be produced using a process that many shoppers are now actively trying to avoid. Every morning, millions of people prepare coffee for the people they love the most. Parents pour coffee before leaving for work. Grandparents brew coffee while spending time with family. Most people never stop to ask one simple question: how was the caffeine removed from these beans? That is exactly what is changing today. More consumers are beginning to understand that not every decaffeination method is the same. Some manufacturers continue using chemical solvents because those methods are efficient and inexpensive. Other manufacturers invest in alternative methods, such as the Swiss water process, which removes caffeine without using chemical solvents. As public awareness continues to grow, many longtime coffee drinkers are taking a closer look at the products they have. Familiar packaging does not always tell the complete story. Unfortunately, the surprises do not stop there. If hearing about chemical solvents in traditional ground coffee sounds concerning, wait until you hear what happens when those same concerns are combined with one of the greatest conveniences of modern life. That brings us to the fourth brand. The fourth brand is Keurig Green Mountain Decaf Pods. Keurig changed the coffee industry by making it possible to brew a fresh cup of coffee in less than 1 minute. Millions of Americans love that convenience. Insert one pod. Press one button. Your coffee is ready. It is fast, it is simple, it is almost effortless. But according to the original investigation, convenience may come with questions that many consumers have never considered. Independent laboratory testing referenced in the report found methylene chloride residues exceeding 90 parts per billion in certain Keurig Green Mountain decaffeinated coffee products. But that is only part of the concern. The investigation also discusses the plastic pod itself. Every time hot water passes through the pod, the coffee comes into contact not only with the coffee grounds, but also with the plastic packaging surrounding those grounds. The report references testing suggesting that, under high temperatures, certain plasticizers known as phthalates may migrate from plastic materials into the finished beverage. Scientists continue studying how long-term exposure to these compounds may affect human health. Even so, the possibility alone has encouraged many consumers to rethink the way they prepare coffee every morning. Some people have returned to traditional drip coffee makers. Others now prefer French presses. Some have switched to pour-over brewing systems. Others use reusable stainless steel filters. The discussion is no longer about convenience alone. It is about understanding the trade-offs and choosing the brewing method that provides the greatest peace of mind. One thing has become increasingly clear throughout this investigation. The conversation is no longer only about flavor. It is about processing methods. It is about packaging materials. It is about manufacturing transparency. And it is about independent laboratory testing. Believe it or not, the next brand on this list has been part of this story for well over 100 years. The history reaches all the way back to the earliest days of decaffeinated coffee. That makes what you are about to hear even more surprising. The fifth brand is Sanka Instant Decaf. If you have been drinking coffee for decades, there is a very good chance you have seen this familiar name on grocery store shelves for most of your life. Sanka is one of the oldest decaffeinated coffee brands in the United States. For generations, the company built its reputation around one simple promise: coffee without caffeine. But according to the original investigation, the history of Sanka also tells the story of how decaffeination methods have evolved over more than 100 years. The investigation explains that when Sanka first introduced decaffeinated coffee during the early 1900s, manufacturers relied on chemicals that would never be considered acceptable today. As scientific research advanced and public awareness increased, those production methods gradually changed. However, according to the report, instead of moving completely toward chemical-free alternatives, the company continued using solvent-based processes. Eventually, methylene chloride became the primary solvent used to remove caffeine from the coffee beans. Some critics argue that this approach allowed manufacturers to remove very high levels of caffeine while keeping production costs relatively low. But the concerns do not end with the decaffeination process. The instant coffee produced by Sanka is manufactured using high-temperature spray drying technology. Supporters of freeze-dried coffee often point out that exposing coffee to extremely high temperatures may reduce naturally occurring antioxidant compounds while increasing the formation of acrylamide. Acrylamide is a substance that has been widely studied because of concerns related to long-term dietary exposure. Researchers continue studying how acrylamide behaves inside the human body, especially after many years of repeated consumption. For many consumers, these findings have reinforced an important lesson. It is not enough to ask whether a coffee is regular or decaffeinated. It is equally important to understand how that coffee was processed from beginning to end. More shoppers are now paying close attention to whether a coffee is freeze-dried or spray-dried, whether chemical solvents were used, and whether the manufacturer publishes independent laboratory testing to support product quality. That represents a significant change compared with only a few years ago, when most people simply purchased the same coffee they had always bought. Today, consumers are becoming far more informed, and manufacturers are increasingly being held accountable for the way they produce the products sitting on grocery store shelves. If hearing this story about one of the oldest decaffeinated coffee brands in the United States surprises you, the next brand on the list may surprise you even more. The next company is associated with one of the most famous advertising slogans in American history. The sixth brand is Maxwell House Decaf. For decades, millions of people have associated Maxwell House with one unforgettable slogan: good to the last drop. It is one of the most successful advertising campaigns in the history of coffee, helping build trust with families across the United States. But according to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing raised questions that many longtime customers never expected. The report states that certain instant coffees and ground decaffeinated coffees sold under the Maxwell House brand contained methylene chloride residues ranging from approximately 50 parts per billion to 89 parts per billion. Those findings have sparked new conversations among consumers who believe, established household brands should lead the industry in transparency and manufacturing standards. One reason this issue receives so much attention is because Maxwell House has remained an affordable choice for generations. The brand is commonly found in homes, hospitals, care facilities, and workplaces, making it one of the most widely consumed coffee brands in the United States. Many people who purchase Maxwell House Decaf are actively trying to reduce their caffeine intake. Some are managing heart conditions. Some have been advised by their physicians to limit caffeine. Others simply enjoy drinking coffee without experiencing the stimulating effects of caffeine. That is why many consumers were surprised to learn that decaffeinated coffee is not automatically produced using the same methods across every brand. Today, more shoppers understand that removing caffeine is only one part of the story. The method used to remove the caffeine is equally important. As awareness continues to grow, more consumers are choosing companies that clearly state they use chemical-free decaffeination methods and that publish independent third-party laboratory testing to support those claims. Up to this point, most of the brands on today's list have raised concerns related to decaffeination. The next brand is different. This time, the discussion moves away from chemical solvents and focuses instead on what may happen during the roasting process. There is a very good chance you have seen this familiar red container sitting in a kitchen many times throughout your life. This may be one of the biggest surprises in today's countdown, Because Folgers is not a decaffeinated coffee. For generations, Folgers has been part of everyday life for millions of American families. That familiar red container has been sitting on kitchen counters for decades. For many people, the aroma of Folgers brings back memories of breakfast before school, early mornings before work, and conversations shared around the kitchen table. But according to the original investigation, the concern surrounding Folgers does not involve chemical solvents. Instead, the concern begins with the roasting process. The report states that Folgers primarily relies on lower-cost Robusta coffee beans. Robusta beans naturally produce a stronger and more bitter flavor than premium Arabica beans. To create a consistent flavor, while keeping production costs low, the investigation states that the beans are roasted at extremely high temperatures for relatively short periods. That is where another concern begins. High-temperature roasting has long been associated with the formation of acrylamide. Acrylamide has been studied extensively because researchers continue investigating possible concerns related to long-term exposure. Although the research is still continuing, many consumers now prefer coffee produced using roasting methods designed to minimize unnecessary contaminant formation whenever possible. But the investigation raises another issue that many people rarely think about. The concern is not only what is inside the coffee. The concern also includes the container that holds the coffee. According to reports referenced in the original investigation, rigid plastic containers and certain metal canisters may contribute to greater migration of plastic-related compounds when compared with coffee packaged in traditional bags. Research in this area is still continuing. Even so, the investigation suggests that every stage of production may influence the final product. That includes sourcing the beans. That includes roasting the beans. That includes packaging. And that includes long-term storage before the coffee reaches the consumer. For many longtime Folgers customers, these discussions have encouraged a completely different way of thinking. Instead of choosing coffee based only on flavor or familiarity, many people are beginning to ask deeper questions. Where were these beans grown? How were these beans roasted? Has the finished product been independently tested? Those questions rarely crossed the minds of most shoppers only a few years ago. Today, those questions are becoming an important part of the buying process for millions of consumers. If purchasing a large container of coffee seems like an easy way to save money, the next brand introduces another concern altogether. The discussion is no longer about a single cup of coffee. The discussion is about repeated daily consumption over many months. The eighth brand is Kirkland's Signature Decaf. Kirkland's Signature has earned a loyal following by offering products that often promise premium quality at prices lower than many national brands. That reputation is exactly why so many shoppers place confidence in the Kirkland Signature name. But according to the original investigation, laboratory testing reported methylene chloride residues ranging from approximately 50 parts per billion to 89 parts per billion in certain Kirkland Signature decaffeinated coffee products. The investigation argues that these products are commonly sold in large containers. As a result, many families consume the same coffee consistently over long periods. Instead of purchasing a smaller package every few weeks, many shoppers buy one large container that lasts for several months. That introduces the idea of one cup of coffee. The investigation encourages consumers to think about repeated daily consumption over many years. Researchers continue studying how long-term exposure to different substances may affect human health. Because of that, many shoppers now prefer companies that openly publish laboratory testing and clearly explain exactly how their coffee is processed before it reaches grocery store shelves. Transparency has become one of the most valuable qualities consumers look for today. Increasingly, people are no longer asking only one question: does this coffee taste good? Instead, they are asking another question: is the company willing to prove what is inside every batch? If a trusted warehouse brand has raised these kinds of questions, the next company on this list demonstrates that paying more for a premium image does not always guarantee a cleaner product. In fact, the next brand built an entire identity around one of the most famous coffee cities in the United States. That makes the next story even more surprising. The ninth brand is Seattle's Best Decaf. At first glance, this appears to be exactly the type of coffee many people would expect to find on a list of premium brands. After all, the name itself is designed to remind consumers of the famous coffee culture in Seattle, a city recognized around the world for specialty coffee. The packaging, the branding, and the advertising all suggest a product made with greater care and higher standards. But according to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing told a very different story. The report states that Seattle's best Decaf contained methylene chloride residues ranging from approximately 50 parts per billion to 89 parts per billion. Many consumers found those results particularly disappointing because this is not a bargain coffee competing only on price. It is marketed as a premium product for customers who are willing to spend more because they believe they are purchasing higher quality. That is exactly what makes this case stand out. Many shoppers naturally assume that paying more means receiving a cleaner and safer product. But throughout this investigation, one message continues to appear. Price alone does not guarantee how a coffee is processed behind the scenes. More consumers are beginning to realize that premium branding alone is no longer enough. They want to know exactly how the beans were decaffeinated. They want to know whether the company publishes independent laboratory testing. They want transparency rather than attractive packaging and carefully written advertising. That trend is spreading throughout the coffee industry. Consumers are becoming more informed. Consumers are asking better questions. And consumers increasingly expect companies to provide evidence instead of relying only on reputation. If discovering these concerns involving a premium coffee is disappointing, the next brand introduces an entirely different issue. This time, the discussion does not involve chemical solvents. Instead, it focuses on heavy metals found in a product that many shoppers purchase, specifically because it carries one of the most trusted labels in the organic food industry. The 10th brand is Anthony Organic Instant Coffee. The 10th brand is Anthony Organic Instant Coffee. For many people, the word organic immediately creates a feeling of trust. It suggests cleaner farming practices. It suggests fewer pesticides. It suggests a healthier product overall. That is exactly why so many consumers are willing to spend more money when they see an organic certification on the package. But according to the original investigation, Anthony Organic Instant Coffee became the subject of a very different concern. Independent laboratory testing referenced in the report detected measurable levels of both lead and arsenic discussed earlier. This issue was not connected to solvent-based decaffeination. Instead, the concern involved naturally occurring heavy metals that coffee plants may absorb from the soil and groundwater where they are grown. Coffee trees naturally absorb minerals from the surrounding environment throughout the growing process. If the soil contains unwanted contaminants, small amounts of those contaminants may also become part of the harvested coffee beans. That is exactly why many experts emphasize that organic certification and contaminant testing are two completely different things. Organic certification primarily evaluates farming practices. It does not automatically guarantee that the finished product will be free from naturally occurring heavy metals. According to the investigation, that misunderstanding is becoming increasingly common among consumers. Many people assume that organic always means cleaner in every possible way. In reality, comprehensive independent laboratory testing is still necessary to verify the quality of the finished product. More and more consumers now want companies to test for heavy metals, pesticide residues, mold toxins, and other possible contaminants before products reach grocery store shelves. Another point discussed in the investigation involves a compound called AMPA. This compound is associated with the environmental breakdown of glyphosate. The report explains that even organic farms may experience environmental cross-contamination. That serves as another reminder that farming practices alone cannot answer every question about product quality. For informed consumers, transparency now means looking beyond a single certification label. It means understanding the entire production process, beginning with the soil where the coffee is grown and ending with the final laboratory results. If an organic label is not always enough to provide complete peace of mind, the next brand demonstrates that even a reputation built on European heritage and luxury does not necessarily answer those same questions. In fact, the next coffee on today's list has spent decades presenting itself as a sophisticated premium choice. That makes the next findings especially surprising. The 11th brand is Gevalia Café Decaf. For decades, Gevalia has built a reputation based on elegance, European heritage, and the promise of premium coffee. The Swedish roots of the company have helped create an image of craftsmanship and quality that appeals to consumers looking for something beyond the average supermarket coffee. Many loyal customers choose Gevalia because they believe they are paying for a more carefully produced product. But according to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing raised concerns that challenged that perception. The report states that Gevalia Decaf contained methylene chloride residues exceeding 90 parts per billion. Those reported levels placed the brand among the highest discussed during this investigation. That is exactly what makes these findings so surprising. Consumers who willingly spend more money on premium coffee naturally expect companies to use the most advanced and carefully controlled production methods available. Instead, the investigation suggests that Gevalia continued relying on a solvent-based decaffeination process that many health-conscious consumers are actively trying to avoid. As coffee drinkers become more informed, they are beginning to realize that premium branding does not necessarily reveal how a product is manufactured. Beautiful packaging, a respected history, and higher prices do not automatically guarantee cleaner processing methods. That is one reason independent laboratory testing has become increasingly valuable. Instead of relying only on advertising, many consumers now want verifiable information, showing exactly what is inside the coffee they drink every morning. Transparency has become just as important as flavor. Companies that openly publish laboratory results are earning greater trust from consumers, who simply want enough information to make informed decisions. If hearing this story about an internationally recognized premium coffee is disappointing, the next company reminds us that affordability can raise an entirely different set of questions. Millions of Americans purchase the next brand because it is inexpensive and widely available. That makes the next story especially important for budget-conscious families. The 12th brand is Great Value Decaf. Great Value is the private, label coffee brand sold by Walmart. For countless households, the Great Value name represents affordable, everyday products that help stretch the grocery budget a little further. But according to the original investigation, laboratory testing reported methylene chloride residues exceeding 90 parts per billion in certain Great Value decaffeinated coffee products. The investigation argues that keeping prices low may sometimes involve manufacturing decisions that many consumers would prefer to know before making a purchase. Many families choose Great Value simply because it fits the household budget. Many assume that one decaffeinated coffee is much like another. They never realize that different manufacturers may rely on very different methods to remove caffeine from coffee beans. As more information becomes available, shoppers are beginning to understand that price is not the only factor worth considering. Questions about processing methods, third-party laboratory testing, sourcing practices, and manufacturing transparency have become equally important for many consumers. Because Walmart serves millions of customers across the United States every week, even relatively small concerns involving one private label product naturally receive widespread public attention. Today's coffee shoppers are becoming much more selective than they were only a few years ago. They are reading labels more carefully. They are researching coffee brands before making purchases, and they are looking for companies willing to explain exactly how products are made. That represents a significant change from the time when most shoppers simply picked up the same familiar container without giving the decision much thought. If one of the largest retailers in the United States has become part of this conversation, the next brand shows that another major supermarket chain has found itself facing many of the same questions. Unfortunately, the pattern does not end here. The 13th brand is Kroger Decaf Classic. Kroger is one of the largest supermarket chains in the United States. Every week, millions of shoppers purchase groceries from Kroger stores. For many families, the private label products sold by Kroger have become a dependable way to save money without giving up everyday essentials. Coffee is no exception. That is exactly why the findings reported by investigators attracted so much attention. According to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing reported methylene chloride residues exceeding 90 parts per billion in certain Kroger Decaf Classic products. Those reported levels placed the brand among the products with the highest methylene chloride levels discussed throughout the investigation. That is especially concerning because of the people who typically purchase decaffeinated coffee. Many consumers choose decaffeinated coffee because they are trying to improve their health. Some have been advised by their physicians to reduce caffeine consumption. Others experience heart palpitations, some struggle with sleeping. Others become more sensitive to caffeine as they grow older. Every time they choose decaffeinated coffee, they believe they are making a healthier decision. Removing caffeine represents only one part of the story. The process used to remove the caffeine is equally important. That is why consumers today are asking questions they rarely considered in the past. Was this coffee processed using chemical solvents? Was this coffee produced using the Swiss water process? Has the company published independent laboratory testing? Is there evidence showing what is actually present in the finished product? Those questions are becoming part of everyday shopping decisions for more and more Americans. Companies that answer those questions openly are earning greater trust. Companies that remain less transparent continue facing greater public scrutiny. If concerns involving one of the largest supermarket chains in the United States were not surprising enough, the next company may surprise coffee lovers even more. Unlike many of the brands discussed so far, this company built a reputation on premium coffee beans, specialty roasting, and careful craftsmanship. Many consumers believe that reputation alone guaranteed a higher standard. According to the original investigation, the situation was not that simple. The 14th brand is Peat Coffee Decaf House Blend. For decades, Peat Coffee has been recognized as one of the original specialty coffee companies in the United States. Long before premium coffee became part of everyday life, Peat Coffee had already established a reputation for carefully sourced coffee beans and expertly roasted coffee. Many loyal customers willingly pay higher prices because they believe every bag offers superior quality. But according to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing reported methylene chloride residues ranging from approximately 50 parts per billion to 89 parts per billion in certain decaffeinated coffee products sold under the Peat Coffee brand. Those findings surprised many consumers who expected a specialty coffee company to rely exclusively on chemical-free decaffeination methods. The investigation explains that Peat Coffee later announced plans to transition some products to the Swiss water process. Many consumers welcomed that announcement. Others questioned why the change had not happened much sooner. People paying premium prices naturally expect more. They do not expect only better flavor. They also expect better sourcing. They expect better processing. They expect greater transparency. And they expect stronger quality control throughout every stage of production. That expectation is one reason companies throughout the specialty coffee industry are facing increasing pressure to publish independent laboratory testing and clearly explain how every product is manufactured. Today's consumers are no longer satisfied with marketing claims alone. They want evidence they can verify for themselves. Now we have reached the final coffee brand on today's list. Ironically, this brand carries two certifications that many shoppers immediately associate with safety, sustainability, and healthier choices. Yet according to the original investigation, even those certifications could not prevent unexpected concerns from emerging. The 15th brand is Mount Hagen Organic Fair Trade Instant Coffee. If you have ever walked through the organic section of a grocery store, there is a good chance you have seen this brand. The words organic and fair trade immediately create a feeling of trust for many shoppers. Those words suggest cleaner farming practices. Those words suggest higher environmental standards. Those words suggest a product produced with greater care from beginning to end. That is exactly why many health-conscious consumers willingly pay significantly higher prices for coffee carrying those certifications. But, according to the original investigation, independent laboratory testing revealed concerns that many loyal samples of Mount Hagen tested positive for measurable levels of both lead and arsenic. Unlike many of the brands discussed earlier, these findings were not connected to chemical solvents used during decaffeination. Instead, the concern involved naturally occurring heavy metals that coffee plants may absorb from the surrounding soil and groundwater. Coffee trees naturally absorb minerals throughout the growing process. If the surrounding soil contains unwanted contaminants, small amounts of those contaminants may also become part of the harvested coffee beans. That is exactly why many experts emphasize that organic certification and contaminant testing are two completely different subjects. Organic certification primarily evaluates farming practices. It does not automatically guarantee that the finished product will be free from naturally occurring heavy metals. According to the investigation, that misunderstanding has become one of the biggest misconceptions among consumers today. Many people assume that organic automatically means cleaner in every possible way. In reality, comprehensive independent laboratory testing is still necessary to verify the finished product before it reaches consumers. The report also explains that responsible companies are increasingly combining organic farming practices with extensive independent laboratory testing for heavy metals, pesticide residues, mold toxins, and many other possible contaminants before coffee reaches grocery store shelves. As consumers become more informed, they are learning to look beyond certification labels. They are asking for something even more valuable. They are asking for transparency supported by independent evidence. After reviewing all 15 brands discussed in today's countdown, one message becomes impossible to ignore. Coffee is no longer only about flavor, More consumers than ever before want to know where the coffee beans were grown. They want to know how the coffee was processed. They want to know what laboratory testing was performed. And they want to know whether the company is willing to share those results openly with the public. Fortunately, this story does not end on a negative note. In fact, it moves in a much more encouraging direction. While some companies have faced difficult questions, other companies have built their reputations by doing exactly the opposite. Those companies focus on cleaner production methods. They focus on stricter quality control. And they focus on complete transparency throughout the manufacturing process. If you have stayed with me this far, do not click away now. The next 5 coffee brands may become the most valuable part of today's video. These are the companies that many health-conscious coffee drinkers are choosing instead. The reasons behind those choices may surprise you. Let us begin with the company that earned the #1 position among the cleanest coffee companies featured in the original investigation. The #1 recommendation is Purity Coffee. Unlike many coffee companies, Purity Coffee was not built around producing the boldest flavor or offering the lowest price. From the very beginning, the mission of the company has centered on one simple goal: produce coffee that places health and quality above everything else. According to the original investigation, every step of production follows that philosophy. That includes sourcing the coffee beans, that includes roasting, that includes laboratory testing, and that includes packaging the finished product. The report states that Purity Coffee performs extensive independent third-party laboratory testing covering more than 310 possible contaminants. Those tests include heavy metals, they include pesticide residues, they include mold toxins, and they include many other unwanted testing compared with what most consumers normally expect from an everyday coffee brand. Another reason Purity Coffee stood out during the investigation involves the manufacturing process. Instead of relying on traditional spray drying technology for instant coffee, the company uses freeze drying technology. Many coffee experts believe freeze drying preserves more of the naturally occurring compounds, aroma, and flavor found in coffee. According to the report, Purity Coffee also uses the Swiss water process for decaffeinated coffee. That process removes caffeine using only water, temperature, and time. No chemical solvents are used. For many consumers, that distinction has become an important factor when choosing decaffeinated coffee. Many supporters of Purity Coffee also appreciate the commitment to regenerative farming practices and the willingness of the company to openly explain how every product is produced. Rather than asking customers to trust marketing claims alone, Purity Coffee has built much of its reputation on transparency and measurable quality standards. No coffee can promise perfect health. However, Purity Coffee demonstrates exactly what many consumers are now looking for: carefully sourced coffee beans, rigorous laboratory testing, and clear information about every step of the manufacturing process. Even though Purity Coffee sets an impressively high standard, the next company takes transparency one step further. Customers can review laboratory results for every batch before placing an order. The #2 recommendation is Balanced Coffee. What makes Balanced Coffee different is not flashy advertising. It is not bold marketing claims. The difference is transparency. Instead of asking customers to trust the information printed on the package, Balanced Coffee reportedly allows customers to review exactly what is inside every production batch before making a purchase. According to the original investigation, the company publishes certificates of analysis for every batch on the company website. Those reports provide access to independent laboratory results covering heavy metals, mold toxins, herbicide residues, and many other important quality indicators. That level of openness is still uncommon within the coffee industry. It is also one of the primary reasons Balanced Coffee earned such high marks during the investigation. The report also states that Balanced Coffee uses 100% specialty grade, organic Arabica coffee beans certified by the Soil Association. The coffee beans are shade, grown at high elevations. They are carefully hand-picked. They are processed under tightly controlled conditions designed to reduce the risk of mold growth before roasting even begins. Every step of production is intended to protect quality long before the coffee reaches the cup. Supporters of Balanced Coffee appreciate that the company does not rely only on attractive packaging or popular wellness phrases to earn consumer confidence. Instead, the company supports every claim with independent laboratory testing that customers can review for themselves. In today's market, that level of transparency has become increasingly valuable because more consumers want evidence instead of promises. People want to know exactly what they are purchasing before they spend their money. According to the original investigation, Balanced Coffee represents a growing movement toward complete transparency throughout the coffee industry. The company demonstrates that trust can be built by openly sharing information rather than keeping that information hidden. Although Balanced Coffee places tremendous emphasis on purity and laboratory testing, the next company follows a very different path. The next recommendation combines carefully tested coffee with functional ingredients that have become increasingly popular among health-conscious consumers over the past several years. If you have spent much time reading about wellness or healthy aging, there is a good chance you have heard this name before. Four Sigmatic has become well known for combining premium organic coffee with functional mushrooms and carefully selected plant ingredients. According to the original investigation, the Focus Organic Instant Coffee produced by Four Sigmatic combines organic Arabica coffee with lion, S-main mushroom, chaga mushroom, and rhodiola root. These ingredients have attracted increasing attention from consumers interested in supporting focus, mental performance, and overall well-being as they grow older. But according to the report, the greatest strength of Four Sigmatic is not simply what the company adds to the coffee. The greatest strength is the careful attention given to everything that should not be present. The investigation states that every production batch undergoes independent third-party laboratory testing for contaminants, including lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. The company has also established strict internal limits for each of those substances. That helps ensure every batch meets quality standards before reaching consumers. According to the investigation, the combination of premium ingredients, careful sourcing, and extensive laboratory testing has helped Four Sigmatic earn a strong reputation among consumers looking for cleaner coffee. Research involving functional mushrooms continues to evolve. Even so, many consumers appreciate that the company places equal emphasis on ingredient quality and product safety. Four Sigmatic demonstrates another important change taking place throughout the coffee industry. Companies are no longer competing only on flavor. Increasingly, companies compete on transparency. They compete on laboratory testing. And they compete on the confidence they can provide to consumers who want to know exactly what is inside every cup. If you believe instant coffee must sacrifice quality for convenience, the next recommendation may completely change that assumption. The number 4 recommendation is Waka Coffee. Waka Coffee has helped change the way many people think about instant coffee. For many years, instant coffee was often viewed as a compromise. It was convenient. But many people believed convenience came at the expense of quality. According to the original investigation, Waka Coffee set out to challenge that belief by focusing on premium coffee beans and modern production methods instead of simply producing the lowest cost product possible. One of the biggest differences highlighted in the report is the decision to use freeze-drying instead of traditional spray-drying. Freeze-drying requires more time. Freeze-drying generally costs more. Even so, many coffee enthusiasts believe freeze-drying does a much better job of preserving the original aroma, flavor, and naturally occurring compounds found in coffee. According to the investigation, Waka Coffee also keeps the ingredient list remarkably simple. The company states that the products contain no added sugar. They contain no artificial flavors. They contain no unnecessary additives. The focus remains entirely on the coffee itself. Just as importantly, the report explains that Waka Coffee performs independent third-party laboratory testing for contaminants including lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury before products reach consumers. That commitment to laboratory testing has become one of the qualities many health-conscious shoppers now look for when comparing coffee brands. Another reason Waka Coffee earned a place on this list involves the decaffeination process. Rather than relying on methylene chloride or other industrial solvents, the company uses a naturally derived sugarcane ethyl acetate process. Prefer this approach because it preserves much of the original coffee flavor while avoiding the use of traditional chemical solvents. According to the original investigation, Waka Coffee demonstrates that instant coffee does not have to sacrifice quality, transparency, or careful manufacturing simply because it is designed for convenience. For consumers who enjoy instant coffee but also want greater confidence in the way it is produced, Waka Coffee has become one of the strongest recommendations highlighted during the investigation. Now we have reached the final recommendation on today's list. This company has earned a strong reputation by focusing on one quality that more consumers demand every year. People want to know exactly where the coffee comes from before it ever reaches the cup. The number 5 recommendation is Canyon Coffee. According to the original investigation, Canyon Coffee places a strong emphasis on complete traceability from the coffee farm to the finished product. Instead of purchasing coffee beans from anonymous suppliers, the company works directly with growers in the volcanic highlands of San Agustin Huila, Colombia, through the Juan Tama Indigenous Farmers Association. That level of traceability gives consumers greater confidence in the origin of every batch. It also reflects a strong commitment to responsible sourcing. The investigation also explains that Canyon Coffee avoids traditional solvent-based decaffeination methods. Instead, the company uses a naturally derived ethyl acetate process to remove caffeine while preserving much of the original character of the coffee beans. After the decaffeination process is complete, the coffee is freeze-dried in small batches. That approach allows careful quality control throughout every stage of production. According to the report, Canyon Coffee has built a strong reputation not by making the loudest marketing claims, but by paying close attention to sourcing, processing, consistency, and transparency. For consumers searching for a cleaner instant coffee made from carefully selected coffee beans and produced with transparent manufacturing practices, Canyon Coffee represents another encouraging example of the direction in which the coffee industry is moving. After examining both sides of today's investigation, one message stands above everything else. Choosing a healthier coffee is not simply about purchasing the most expensive brand. It is not about choosing the package with the most attractive design. Instead, it is about understanding where the coffee beans were grown. It is about understanding how the coffee was processed. It is about knowing what laboratory testing was performed. And it is about knowing whether the company is willing to share that information openly. Today, as consumers have access to more information than ever before. That information gives people the opportunity to make better, informed decisions every time they purchase coffee. Whether you drink regular coffee, decaffeinated coffee, whole bean coffee, or instant coffee, spending only a few extra minutes researching a coffee brand before bringing it home can make a meaningful difference over time. If today's video helped you look at your morning coffee in a different way, I would truly appreciate it if you would take a moment to like this video and share it with a friend or family member who enjoys coffee every day. If you are new to Tips for Seniors, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos. Every week, Tips for Seniors brings you practical, research-based information designed to help you stay healthy, stay active, and stay informed after the age of 60. I would also love to hear from you. Which coffee brand do you drink most often? After watching today's video, are you thinking about trying a different brand? Please leave your thoughts someone else make a better, informed decision. Thank you very much for spending your time with Tips for Seniors today. Until next time, take good care of yourself, stay informed, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next video.